So I was talking to Bob about that, and he was really interested because he told me, he's like, he goes, John would talk about this stuff all the time, and I never believed him. And he was referring to John Lear, who's a well-known conspiracy theorist, but also a pilot for the CIA. And so, but, Bob was really clear with me, at least, that the relationship he had with John Lear was one that was friendly, but he didn't buy into any of the stuff John was saying. Like John would, Bob would say, oh, John thought people lived in the sun. Like he just kind of threw everything out. So he never really registered that any of this could be real. He thought it was all hogwash kind of. And so when I brought up Majestic 12 and I brought up, Aztec and this and that, you could see him being like, wait, you think this happened? And I'm like, oh yeah, especially Aztec. I'm pretty high conviction after reading Steinman's book and looking into Scott and Suzanne Ramsay's work. They got a new book coming out soon, by the way, on this stuff. It's really interesting. There's an overwhelming amount of evidence that it did happen. And then I remember mentioning to Bob that there was a witness that came out that said they saw this craft in a hangar at Wright-Patterson, and they were doing a high voltage test on it, and it went translucent, like kind of see-through. But not fully, like kind of like a shower glass.
Yeah, where you could see the shape of it.
You could see shapes of people. Right. And Bob got all excited, and he goes, that's exactly what it was like. And he started and it was just me and him. Like you could tell, like visibly excited by it. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, when he was in the craft, the one time he was allowed in the UFO, they were measuring the chair, whatnot, or the seating device. And he was looking, and all of a sudden one of the panels went invisible, one of the panels of the craft. And symbols started appearing on the panels, according to him. That was the only time he was allowed in the craft, but he remembers that, and he speaks about that. And so when I mentioned it wasn't completely transparent, he got all excited because he's like, that's what it was like. He never that's not a detail that he'd ever mentioned, but you saw that it excited him that it came from someone else. And so, it was really interesting to see him react to that stuff. And he's not opposed to meeting people like Scott and Suzanne Ramsay, people who he can trust know something. I think he's afraid of engaging with the UFO space because of how many people speculate. He does not like to speculate. Sure, he'll talk about things, but when it comes to what he's seen, and he's very, very careful about talking about stuff because he doesn't want to give people the wrong idea. Even in the blue documents that they had him read, where they briefed him on these alleged blue documents that contained, all sorts of secrets about religion, where we're from, hybridization programs or genetic modifications in humans, and the anatomy of a gray, where they're from, what star system, all this stuff he had to be briefed on. He never believed any of it, and he really is reluctant to talk about it in public. He'll chat about it off camera, I think, but in public, he just doesn't want to give people the impression that it's true. He's he knows about passage material and the fact that sometimes they'll put bullshit in there to see that if you talk about it to someone else, they'll know exactly who it came from.
Yep.
And he's like, they do that. And he's like, so he's like, the only thing I can say is that whatever they showed me about the craft that he worked on, that was true. So, I can only surmise that whatever else he read about is also true, but he'll never make that assumption.